A couple weeks ago, my dad came home and pitched me a small job offer. One of his coworkers was going away for a few days and needed somebody he could trust to watch over his house. The reason my dad pitched this to me was because the man's house has a big CCTV system, basically a camera in every room, and then an operating desk where all screens could be watched on a big monitor. And I'm a computer science major, so my dad just always assumes that I know how to work anything technological. The man told my dad that he'd pay me $200 for the 2 days just to watch the house. Whatever that meant. My dad drove me to the house and introduced me to the man, whose name doesn't matter. The man made it seem like he preferred I stay in the upstairs room with the monitors as opposed to roaming the house all day. That was fine with me though. So when I wasn't eating, I was mostly just sitting in that room with the TV on in the background and doing schoolwork on my laptop. Ironically, the thing I was doing the least was keeping an eye on the monitors. Night came. I started wondering where in the house I should sleep, since surprisingly we hadn't discussed that. So I sat back down at the desk and looked at all the different rooms on the screens to see which rooms had beds or couches. I noticed something I wasn't expecting to notice though. The back screen door was open downstairs. I didn't remember it being open. I looked through each and every camera screen in a panic. In the living room, a closet door was open. This one I knew wasn't open earlier. I texted my dad to call the man and ask him if he came back home. Meanwhile, I continued watching the screen. On the grainy, dark image, a tall person who resembled only a black shadow on the screen stepped out from the closet. I pulled my arms off the desk as I covered my mouth with my hands in shock. As I did this, however, my left elbow pulled some heavy object from the desk onto the floor, creating a big thud. The person in the image very clearly moved their head up to the ceiling as a response to the noise. They went for the stairs, walking up very, very slowly, step by step. Meanwhile, I got a text back from my dad saying, "No, he's not. I just spoke to him half an hour ago. Why?" I got so caught up in my phone texting my dad to send help that I didn't even pay attention to the monitor. There was a knock at the door. I looked at it and then the screens. The first screen I laid my eyes on was the one showing the person outside the door to the room I was in. When I remembered that door had no lock, the only thing I could think to do was jump out the window into the bushes below. I ran halfway down the block and then stopped when my dad called me. I had him call his friend and ask him if he was expecting somebody in the house. The man said he had no relatives or friends who had his key or would ever let themselves into his home. So he called the cops and had them review the footage. I got to watch all of it, and it showed everything. From the moment the intruder broke the glass to the backyard door, to the moment I jumped out the window and him running away shortly after. The intruder was never found. The footage was just too dark to identify his face. One day I agreed to house it for a friend just for the night. He and his family were going on a short vacation and needed somebody to watch their pets and house. I agreed to do it for a small amount of money. I'd been to his house many times before, so I was familiar with the layout. Nothing eventful happened at all the entire day. I just fed the 2 cats, the fish, and the birds. I went to sleep on the couch in the sunroom because it was my favorite room in their house. It was a tiny room surrounded by windows with a big TV mounted on the wall. I fell asleep with the TV on, but I woke up not long after. I turned it off, and now the room was dark. I tried to go back to sleep, but I thought I heard the sound of the PVC gate closing outside. I thought it might have just been the wind. The room had windows surrounding it in 3 directions, so I was basically looking around in a circle out into the darkness. I sat back down on the couch when I calmed down, but I heard a leaf crunching outside. That's when I knew someone was out there. I took another look outside. There was literally somebody pressed up against the glass to the window behind the couch. They were looking in, but I didn't know if they could see me or not. I yelled as loud as I could at them to fuck off. I'm not a big dude, but whoever this guy was appeared to be, so I wasn't going out there. Shockingly, this didn't scare the person away. In fact, they walked over to the back door and tried the doorknob. I ran to get the phone, and then I yelled into the sunroom, "I'm calling the police." Thankfully, this worked. He ran off. I didn't actually call the cops, though. Instead, I texted my friend just to let him know of an almost break-in. I slept through the night in an upstairs bedroom, locked. The next morning, my friend's family returned to find all of the tires on their sedan that was left behind had been slashed. We speculated that somebody who had it out for their family and knew of the vacation they were taking had some kind of plan to break in. But when that failed, they settled for this. That's just speculation, but still, it's the least terrifying explanation to me. When I was in college, I used to work as a babysitter on the side to make a little extra cash. One day I saw an ad posted in the library that was requesting a house sitter for the weekend and to inquire through phone. I was used to babysitting, but house sitting sounded even better, same thing minus taking care of kids. So I called the number as soon as I got home and spoke with a guy named Chuck. I met him that Friday and he showed me around the house. He and his wife eventually went on their way, and I was left alone in the house. I was given one of the spare upstairs bedrooms. I say one of because there were a few. The house was huge. Nothing out of the ordinary was going on at all for the whole day. It was quite uneventful, and I felt like I was missing out on going out since it was a Friday night. But I kept reminding myself that I'd be making $200 for the whole weekend. Later in the night, I kind of just laid in the guest bed that I'd be sleeping in and watched a movie on demand. I wondered why this couple felt the need to hire somebody to watch their house for the whole weekend. There weren't any pets or anything after all. Though it was a very, very nice house, so it seemed the most obvious that they just wanted a sense of security for their house while they were gone. By the time I turned off the TV, I was shot and probably minutes away from falling asleep. But the slight sound of a click, along with a sudden glow in the room, woke me completely. I opened my eyes fully to see light creeping out from under the crack of a door. It took me a second to realize that it was a closet door. I flipped on my side as my heart started beating 200 beats a minute. I pulled the sheets up to my chin and pretended to be asleep. I was certain someone was in that closet, and I was simply too afraid to get out of that bed and make any noises. Words can't describe my fear in that bed, or how with each passing minute I felt more and more like I could possibly die. The closet door opened, I could hear it, but I could not see it as I was facing the opposite way. I closed my eyes and tried my best not to move. The room went dark again as I heard another click, a bit louder this time. The closet door quietly closed in the background, but I didn't hear anything else. I was afraid that whoever it was went back into the closet. I didn't know what to do because they had to have seen me and I didn't want to run for it in fear of being chased. The room was dead silent as I was thinking over my next course of action. Eventually, I decided to just peek over to the other side and make sure the coast was clear. I flipped on my other side. Someone was standing right next to the bed, with their hand reaching towards me. My reaction, I pulled my arms up towards me, balled up and backed up onto the wall in shock. The person stood there showing no signs of leaving. I hopped over the metal bar at the end of the bed, ran for the door, down the stairs, and then out the front door. I ran all the way home, let myself in, called Chuck and explained. I told him it was his problem now and hung up. He tried calling back, but I didn't answer. Maybe there was some story to be told, like they knew this person, or they frequently dealt with break-ins and that's why they needed me. I didn't care though. I didn't even care about the money. I just didn't want to speak to that Chuck guy ever again, or see that house ever again.